With demand shrinking and dealerships remaining closed for the time being, Ford has been piling up a boatload full of debt, giving it the highest chance of bankruptcy out of all the automakers. And that number is projected to accelerate as the shutdown continues. But how doomed is the automaker really, and what are the chances of Ford going bankrupt? If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and let's get right into it. It's no secret that the legacy automakers are years behind Tesla when it comes to electric vehicles. While some automakers, including Volkswagen, are spending tens of billions of dollars on electric vehicles, the management at Ford refuses to do so. In fact, out of Volkswagen, General Motors, Toyota, Mercedes-Benz, and Ford is the automaker that is investing the least amount of money into electric vehicles. This doesn't come as a surprise, as Ford's best-selling vehicle, the F-150, has seen little to no innovation over the past few years. This slow innovation has led to declining sales over the past few years, and with Ford's debt piling up, we are left with the question, will Ford go bankrupt? With Ford's long-term debt at $155 billion, the company's credit has constantly been downgraded. Ford's credit recently got downgraded to junk status, which means that from a lender's perspective, there's a high chance Ford never pays the lender back. As a result, these loans must yield very high interest. Despite being downgraded to junk status, Ford continues to lend money. Most recently, Ford took out an $8 billion loan with an annual interest rate at over 9%. To put this into perspective, just 4 months before Ford made this loan, the company was able to get a loan with an interest rate of 3 to 5%. With interest rates this high, Ford's loans will strain the company's cash flow and spiral the company into bankruptcy if a short-term miracle doesn't happen. In 2019, Ford had to pay a total of $1 billion just from loan interest, and that number is accelerating as Ford continues to take high-interest loans. To top it off, Ford's cash flow is deteriorating as their margins continue to decrease. In the fourth quarter, US margins for Ford dropped from 8.8% to 2.8%, and Ford's margins in Europe and China dropped to 0.3% and negative 21.5% respectively. You just heard that right. Ford's margin in China was negative 21.5%, and that's before the pandemic started. As you can probably guess, in the first quarter of 2020, Ford's margins have collapsed even more. In total, Ford lost $2 billion in the first quarter, and that number is projected to increase for the following quarters. In the next quarter, Ford is expected to lose another $4.7 billion, slowly shredding away at Ford's $25 billion worth of cash and cash equivalents. Also, keep in mind that Ford has $53 billion in current debt and $115 billion in long-term debt. To top it all off, Ford has recently settled a lawsuit where the automaker was exposed selling Ford Fiestas and Ford Focuses despite knowing that the vehicles had defective transmissions. This lawsuit resulted in an agreement where Ford would pay up to $22,000 for each defective 2011 to 2016 Ford Fiesta or 2012 to 2016 Ford Focus. With millions of these vehicles out there, this could cost Ford up to $500 million. Now that Ford's finances are in big trouble, it's just a matter of time before Ford goes bankrupt, and the company's poor management makes the situation even worse. With Ford CEO Jim Hackett making over $17 million a year while being 65 years old, Hackett has had no motivation to make risky moves. While Ford may be in lots of trouble, Jim doesn't care, as he is already well off enough to retire while still living luxuriously. As a result, Jim is not taking electric vehicles seriously, as when asked about his opinion on Elon Musk, Hackett stated, "I happen to compete with a rocket scientist who's really smart, and I respect that about him." And yet, he's competing with the ultimate disruptor, Henry Ford. To claim that Elon Musk is competing with Henry Ford, a man who was alive more than 100 years ago, is beyond ridiculous. Now, behind all this smoke and fire, the numbers are showing that Ford's end may come within the next 2 years. At the rate that Ford is losing money at, it would likely take a few years for Ford to officially go bankrupt. However, because of the Cybertruck, Ford will likely go bankrupt within the next 2 years. In hindsight, it may seem insane to claim that a blocky truck that looks like it came out of Blade Runner would make Ford go bankrupt. Nevertheless, a deeper look shows that this may actually be true. Ford's prized F-150 is and has been Ford's most profitable vehicle and has carried Ford through tough times. One report stated that there has been no greater profit machine in the history of the industry than the F-Series. With the Cybertruck having over 600,000 pre-orders, the demand for Cybertrucks will lower the demand for the Ford F-150. Once the Cybertruck actually starts to hit the road, the electric pickup will steal a substantial amount of market share from the Ford F-150. Even if the Cybertruck only takes 5% of the market share from the Ford F-150, this would still make a massive impact on Ford's profits, as the company would not be able to cover plenty of losses coming from its other vehicles. Once Ford does go bankrupt, we'll be left with the looming question: is Ford going to get bailed out by the government? Let me know what you think about whether Ford will get bailed out in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.